Most people see it as just a trail around the city, a quiet place to walk or ride, but the Harrisburg Greenbelt has been here for more than a century, and it's seen things most people have long forgotten.
Completion of a concrete span bridge.
Buried under the brush and pavement are the remains of old amusement parks.
I am standing right where that roller coaster would have been.
Vanished zoos, and sites of strange disappearances.
Her body would be found.
Some even whisper about buried treasure and encounters not of this world. In this episode, I trace all 20 miles of the Greenbelt, uncovering 123 years of hidden history woven through the heart of Harrisburg.
So before Harrisburg resident and conservationist Mira Lloyd Dock gave her City Beautiful speech to the Harrisburg Board of Trade in December of 1900, Wildwood Lake was known as Wetzel Swamp. Newspapers starting back during the Civil War reported on many nefarious activities that happened back here at the swamp. In October of 1862, 5-year-old Mary Elizabeth German would be abducted or actually just disappear from her house. Unfortunately, her body would be found back here in Wetzel Swamp, dead from a gunshot wound to her neck. There were actually candies lying nearby her. But city police stayed busy arresting vagrants back here. One newspaper reported that a wild man and a wild woman was arrested back here, wearing no clothes, just running around, living off the land. In 1901, Harrisburg resident and leading proponent of the City Beautiful movement, J. Horace McFarland, took several photos of Wetzel Swamp that were actually on display in the front window of the Harrisburg Telegraph building. That same year, newspapers reported that 3 teachers were down here collecting specimens at the swamp and came down with typhoid fever. McFarland released a statement to the newspapers indicating that he did not think that it was the swamps that caused the fever. He was mainly concerned with people starting to fear coming into these outdoor areas. In 1902, Mira Lloyd Dock and Joseph Rothrock created the Mont Alto Tree Nursery and established the first forestry school in Pennsylvania. The seedlings from that nursery were used to replenish the Pennsylvania forests that were completely destroyed due to logging operations. That same year, Boston architect Warren Manning was hired by the city to consult on beautifying the area and creating parks. Manning's immediate suggestion was to create a park out of the riverfront, expand Reservoir Park, and create a landscape park here in Wetzel Swamp. Manning also suggested what appears to me to be the first mention of a ringed 20-mile boulevard around the city connecting all the parks. In February of 1902, voters approved the funding of this plan. Between 1902 and 1917, a lot of work was done towards these improvements. Riverfront Park was cleaned up, concrete steps were built along the edge to prevent erosion. The ringed trail around the city started here at Wetzel Swamp, Riverfront Park, and a 2-mile section of Cameron Parkway south of the city. The Paxtang Parkway was the next section to be completed to connect the Greenbelt to Reservoir Park. But by 1917, Reservoir Park is where this road ended. The section was never completed from there to Wetzel Swamp. In May of 1905, J. Horace McFarland announced that Wetzel Swamp here would be officially known as Wildwood Park. That same year, the Paxtang Park would add their first roller coaster, a figure 8 called the Coaster Flyer. But more on that when we get to that section of the Greenbelt. In 1907, J. Horace McFarland writes his essay, The Awakening of Harrisburg, where he calls for cleaner streets, a modern sewer system, beautification of parks, tree planting and greenery, citizen involvement, and public investment. Some consider McFarland's essay to be the single thing that kicked off the City Beautiful era in Pennsylvania. It reframed urban improvement as both a moral duty and a community ideal. In 1927, the Wildwood Zoological Park opened here. This place actually had a zoo. The only photo that I can find in existence is the entrance. Allegedly, there's another photo floating around there of the bear caves that used to be here. So I reached out to Harrisburg Historical Society to see if they have those photos of the bear cave so I can determine where that was located at. But stay tuned for that individual video of Wildwood Park's history in Wetzel Swamp. So the next stop on the Greenbelt Trail after Wildwood Park would be Riverfront Park here. And they actually used to dump raw sewage into the river here. They would then pump water from the river back into the taps of the Harrisburg residents without any filtration whatsoever. So that was one of the reasons for the rise in typhoid fever at that time. After the Greenbelt left Riverfront Park, it used to go across this old railroad bridge here, but looks like it's closed off. I think because of construction up here. Yeah. No way over that without climbing, but this railroad bridge right here was the path into the next section, which was called Cameron Park. So this entire wooded area here was called Cameron's Woods. In 1906, ex-Senator J. Donald Cameron donated his property so that they could connect the Greenbelt from here to Paxtang Park. In 1915, the park superintendent oversaw the completion of a concrete span bridge across the Spring Creek. I believe that is this bridge right here. The article indicated that it improved a dangerous turn on the road. The interesting thing is there was also an article right under that indicating that a woman was driving down here. Her chauffeur punched this at full speed. He ended up not making a turn, overturned the vehicle, and landed upside down in the creek, killing the woman. So this looks like the same design you can see in that newspaper article. I can get around to it. But in June of 1967, 100 Hall Manor residents would report seeing an object 20 feet in length fly over this area from the northeast. They all stated the same thing, that this object landed in this area of the Greenbelt and it had flashing lights all over it. They stated a little bit after that thing landed, a smaller object, the shape of a basketball, landed in the same area, and they both then took off. So 5 days later, they reported the same thing happened here in this area of the Greenbelt. The day after that, 2 New Cumberland boys reported seeing a similar object hovering over the New Cumberland Army Depot, which is directly across the river from the Greenbelt here. They indicated that a smaller object came out of the bottom of that larger object, and both objects then flew off from the area. But check out my full video about the Hall Manor UFO. It's a pretty crazy story. Moving further north on the Greenbelt, we run into the Paxtang Park section. This area over here used to be a popular amusement park with 2 roller coasters. In 1893, the Paxtang Parkway was leased from the Rutherford family homestead. The spring house for that homestead is still here, just on the other side of this bridge. But the Harrisburg Electric Rail Company leased this land from the Rutherford family. The construction of this spring goes back to 18th century. The Rutherfords lived in this mansion just up from the spring house until 1920, when Dauphin County purchased that property from them and turned it into a juvenile detention center. They eventually built onto it, and in 1978, that became a senior center. But in 1905, the Paxtang Park added that figure-8 roller coaster that I was talking about earlier. I am standing right where that roller coaster would have been, at least the northern edge of it. It actually crossed the creek. And you can see in a lot of the pictures, the roller coaster in the background and all the bridges crossing the Spring Creek here. But the roller coaster started up on this end where there's a parking lot for the Greenbelt now. It traveled across this bend in the creek, and there's a development on the other side where the majority of that roller coaster was located. In 1916, the Paxtang Parkway just north of here was opened to connect this section to Reservoir Park. By the summer of 1922, the Electric Rail Company would announce that they can no longer afford the operating costs of the park, and it would be the last season of operation. In August of that year, Kerstetter Amusements out of Newark, New Jersey, purchased a lease for this property. Kerstetter announced that he was going to add a second roller coaster, a Ferris wheel, a dance hall, an airplane swing, and a couple other attractions. A 1923 newspaper article shows that the Park Commission was still trying to urge the city to complete that section from Reservoir Park to Wetzel Swamp. The 1929 Sanborn Fire Insurance maps showed this huge figure-8 roller coaster layout, along with the Ferris wheel and some of the other rides, a shooting gallery. Unfortunately, that same year, the stock market crashed, triggering the Great Depression. It was also getting difficult to match the competition from nearby Hershey Park that opened in 1906. Kerstetter was missing tax payments and announced that this would be the final season of operation. A year later, the Steelton Bank would take over ownership of this lease and sell off all of the rides. 1939 aerial photographs show that this park was empty at that point. It doesn't look like there's any rides there anymore, so everything was gone at that point. Just makes me wonder the size of this tree. If this thing would have been around back then, that thing is huge. I just have to say, the Capital Area Greenbelt Association, you were doing a fantastic job. There's now parking at all of these trailheads. But the further north we go, we end up on the Paxtang Parkway that was built in 1916. This is another secluded area of this road. It was actually open to vehicular traffic until 1982 when they had to close it due to the cost of maintenance and safety issues, and there wasn't any budget to take care of it. I moved to nearby Edgemont in 1984. Some of the locals showed me this place when we take our BMX bikes down here and ride, and eventually later on dirt bikes. We knew it was probably illegal to ride our dirt bikes back here, but the only way back here was either by foot or a dirt bike or bicycle, so we knew the cops probably weren't driving back here. If you haven't seen it yet, check out my interview with retired police officer Ray Magaro, who talked about posting up on the other side of Parkway here, waiting for some of us crazy kids to come out. But talking about riding dirt bikes back here made me think about an incident where I was riding on the back of my friend's dirt bike, and we were going full blast down this thing at night, and didn't see one of the cable supports on one of the telephone poles, and we smashed right into it. Fortunately, my friend took the brunt of that impact, and I just slid off the back. So Mike, if you're watching this, it looks like they removed all of the telephone pole supports from here. I remember reading that some of the concerns down here was the fact that the sewage line crossed through these barriers, and they're at risk of breaking. So they were trying to find a way to bypass that. So I don't know if they did, if that thing's actually still a sewage pipe intact there. But man, this is really nice down here. It's just like I remember it, very peaceful and secluded. It makes you think that you're not actually right on the outskirts of Harrisburg City. And that is exactly what McFarland and Myra Lloyd Dock intended. While the Greenbelt does not go through nearby Bellevue Park, this is the neighborhood that McFarland designed and called home. In 1907, J. Horace McFarland partnered with the same Boston architect that designed the Greenbelt, Warren Manning, to create what has been called the first landscape suburb in central Pennsylvania. Manning laid out lots for 280 homes in a tree-shaded park-like setting. No telephone poles, no overhead utility wires, no black smoke, no fences. This was the opposite of the typical row house design that was popular at this time. McFarland created a garden here, what he called his Breeze Hill Estate. This garden was used as a backdrop, a stage backdrop for several catalogs and advertisements over the years. In 1938, the Municipal Rose Garden on 3rd Street near the Polyclinic Hospital was dedicated in McFarland's honor. That rose garden was also the second home of the Dance of Eternal Spring fountain that I'll be talking about here in a minute. There is a lot of history in Reservoir Park. If you saw my Lost Fountains of Harrisburg video, you know that there were several historic fountains that were placed here at one point or another, including the Dance of Eternal Spring that was commissioned by Milton Hershey in 1909 for his estate. The sculptor of that statue used the nude form of Fishing Creek native Amanda Straw, and Milton Hershey did not want that on his property. There was also some argument over the final cost of the statue. But the main attraction of the Greenbelt through Reservoir Park here was the view of the Susquehanna Valley. Now the main attraction is the Civil War Museum. But in 1917, the Greenbelt stopped here at Reservoir Park. During this time, people were able to buy their own homes and have cookouts in their own backyards. So there was little use for public spaces and parks anymore. This migration out of the city had a major impact on the city's budget. In 1990, the Harrisburg Greenbelt Association formed and began work on completing this trail from Reservoir Park to Wildwood Lake. If you saw my Why It's Called Spooky Hollow video, you know some of the crazy things that happened in this isolated area not too far from what was then the Harrisburg State Lunatic Asylum. Edgemont started out in 1906 when the Edgemont Realty Company began selling lots on this old farmland for as low as $15. When the old 8th Ward in Harrisburg was demolished, a majority of the black residents of that area bought houses and lots in Edgemont. With the exception of a schoolhouse that was built on top of this hill at that time, this was a very isolated place with only thick woods between here and the Harrisburg State Lunatic Asylum at that time. The earliest mention of this being called Spooky Hollow was in November of 1903 when newspapers reported that highwaymen robbed several people down here. 1913, newspapers indicate that this was a popular place to pick Christmas trees. Newspapers indicate that in 1916, Edgemont girl Violet Moggins was shot by her boyfriend Elmer Devens after she attempted to break up with him. There was a manhunt for Devens, but they didn't find him. A month later, 10-year-old Elizabeth Shupp would find his body laying here dead, apparently of a gunshot from the same gun that he shot Violet with. In 1917, an alligator would be found down here. Apparently it escaped from a local animal attraction not too far away from here. That same year, 1917, newspapers reported that this was a popular place for Boy Scouts to camp and practice their craft. This was also a popular place for motorcycle hill climbs and rifle competitions. In October of 1921, newspapers began reporting the appearance of strange tunnels and holes being dug down here. The articles indicated that multiple men were scared off and ran into the woods to hide. It also said that children couldn't sleep and they were damaging Mr. Kelker's crops. Mr. Kelker ended up releasing a statement to the newspapers indicating that he thinks they're digging for a buried treasure, and if they work with him, he'll help them out. Otherwise, he's going to blow up the tree that it appears that they're digging around. In 1923, the Park Commission planners again attempted to get this link connected from Reservoir Park to Wetzel Swamp. In 1951, there was a bar and hotel called Trails End Hotel operating right there at the end of this road. It was in a battle with the state hospital over there about its liquor license. The hospital didn't like the idea of having access to alcohol just across the woods and field from their hospital. But that is a strange and interesting story of the Harrisburg Greenbelt. I hope that as you travel this 20-mile route around the city, you think of all the interesting stories and history that occurred around this 123-year-old route. But please subscribe for more and check out my individual videos for the specific areas included in this story.